All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It is Friday, my favorite day of the week. Not only because it's Friday, the end of the week, but it's also photography masterclass, and that's my favorite day of the week. For those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Terry White, worldwide design and photography evangelist here at Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live once again on a Friday morning, my time, and here in Atlanta, but Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Saturday morning, depending on where you are in the world. Uh, so, um, Thanks again for being here. And for those of you who are watching on other channels, you might be watching this on YouTube, you might be watching this on Twitter or Facebook, whatever it is, just know that you can hang out and watch it there all you want. But as far as the chat is concerned, or the comments or questions or whatever, if you have something to say, then that's best handled at b.net/Adobe Live. So, with that said, if you are interested in asking a question or saying something or getting a shout out, whatever it is, so I see General Kenobi there. I see Blyce or Bliss. I see Cody Bear. Oh, hey, Cody Bear. Happy belated birthday. Steve, Sean, and all the people joining me in the chat. So thank you for being here in the chat. But again, if you want to be in the chat, head over to b.net/Adobe Live. And I see some folks over on YouTube. I even see someone from Tanzania, Impella Digital. Welcome. Thanks for being here all the way from Tanzania. And thanks, guys, for being here for all you or from all the places that you are from. So, with that said, let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be doing today. So today we're going to do part two of last week's class, or 2 weeks ago, because last week we were off. So 2 weeks ago um, I did a masterclass on 10 tips for smartphone photography, iPhone photography, smartphone photography. And that went over well, and I didn't even get through everything. So I'm here to wrap things up with part two. Um, Part two is just really a continuation. So there were some questions that came up from the last one. I'll address those during this. There were some things I didn't get to show, some equipment I didn't get to show. So we'll talk about those things today. And we'll just continue down the path of basically making it so you take better photos with the device you always have with you, which is your phone. Now, I know I normally do these master classes for professional photographers that are using professional gear, the DSLRs, mirrorless cameras. But at the same time, we also have our phones with us all the time. So there are times where I'm somewhere and I see something that will make a good shot, and I'm like, oh, I didn't bring a camera. Oh, I do have one, the one in my pocket. So let's go ahead and make those just better photos to begin with. And a lot of the tips that I would give a professional photographer would be the same ones I'd give an iPhone photographer, because really you're just choosing a different camera with a, not as many features and functions as a professional camera, but still lots of features that you can use and some features that professional cameras don't have. So with that said, it's really about taking better photos, no matter which camera you have or which smartphone or which device you have. Now, a lot of the tips I gave 2 weeks ago, people were saying, oh, wait, I don't have that feature. I don't have that function. So I'm giving the tips based on iPhones. In most cases, the same kind of features available on Android. And in most cases, everything I'm showing is available even on older iPhones. Now, for example, like when I talked about switching between the wide angle and telephoto lens on your camera, that means that your device has more than one camera. These are different. Like this is an iPhone 12 Pro Max, so it's got three cameras on it. It's got a wide angle, a telephoto, and an ultra wide angle. Now yours may only have two, like one up and one down, and that would be a telephoto and a wide angle. Yours may only have one if it's an older device, and that's the camera you have. So there is no switching between telephoto and wide angle in that case, because it's only got the one built-in camera. So if I say something that your device doesn't have, I apologize. But usually there are workarounds even for the things that your camera may not, your phone may not have. And in many cases, the tips are universal. So it's less to do with the hardware than it is to do with the techniques. So let's go ahead and dive in without further ado. I'm going to go back to my list and continue where I left off. And this is one important aspect of where I left off. And I just realized it's in the next room. Hang on one second. I'll be right back. I just got to go grab it. Like I said, I'll be right back. And I'm back. All right, so what I wanted to go grab was my wallet, which was sitting over there on the counter. And in my wallet, I carry this. Now, I'll get to what this is in a minute. It's a credit card size device. I'll get to this in a minute. But what the first tip is going to be is basically stabilizing your device, stabilizing your smartphone. And for that, we typically use a tripod. Now, whether it's a professional camera or a smartphone, tripods are tripods. They're designed to do one thing: keep your device, your camera, perfectly still. So when you're shooting with a smartphone, chances are your smartphone is small in your hand, and therefore, by hand holding it, you're more apt to move it even ever so slightly. And so that's going to cause your shots to be slightly out of focus, depending on how much light there is. So typically you'd want to stabilize it. Now, there's some other benefits to using a tripod. Number one, you can get in the shot. So if you wanted to hold, I see this all the time. People are out and about, they're like wanting to take a selfie or a group shot with 2 or 3 people. And they're like, can someone take the picture for us? If you have some way to stable your camera or set your camera up or your phone up, then you can go ahead and take that shot yourself. Now, this particular tripod's been my favorite for years. It's by a company called Archon. Archon's based in California. No, I don't work for Archon. I don't get commissions for Archon, but I do like their products, and I do talk about them all the time. And by the way, for those of you who are like, well, how will I remember what gear you're talking about? There's a gear guide that I put together in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube, or go see this on YouTube after the fact, there's a description there's a gear guide for everything on the YouTube description. If you're watching on Behance, it's in the info tab. I'm looking at it right now. So if you click the info tab, you can go and see the link to that. And if you're watching on Twitter or Facebook, then you're going to have to go see it in those other places. Maybe I'll tweet it later, and maybe I can put it in the Facebook description. Let's see if I can get to that right now. I can maybe paste it in that Facebook description really quickly. All right, but anyway, so all the gear I'm talking about is basically in the link that's in the description for this particular stream. So why do I like this particular tripod? What's so unique about it? Well, you can see the legs on it are kind of wobbly or bent, and that's not really the case. They're really steady. Hang on, just let me do a quick paste here. They're really steady. The thing that this particular tripod can do is it can bend and wrap around things. So if you can't set it down because it's going to be on the ground, or someone might kick it over, or whatever the case may be, you could wrap it around a chair, a pole, a doorway, anything that you basically can either sit it on top of and bend the legs around it, or bend the legs around it. And of course, it can shoot and turn in portrait and landscape mode. It's also super lightweight, super inexpensive. It expands out to hold just about the biggest size phones or the smallest phones, and that's why I like this particular device. Now, the other one that I mentioned a second ago, I went and got it from my wallet. Same thing, like that I mentioned before with your professional camera. With your professional camera, you're likely to bring it when you need it, but you don't have it with you all the time. Like you don't have it with you every second of the day. Same thing with the with this tripod. I don't have it with me. I don't carry this in my pocket. I don't keep it with me at all times, but I do keep my wallet with me at all times. So with that said, this is a wallet size, credit card sized tripod, or holder, I should say. So here's how it works. Size, little piece of plastic or whatever it's plastic, flip it over. So now you turn it and then you flip it this way, flip it that way. And now you've got something that can stabilize your phone in both landscape, because you just set your phone in it, like so. So landscape, or it will hold it portrait as well and make it stand up. And also turns. So the other thing I like about it is it can tilt and turn in any direction. So again, just like the smartphone is the camera I always have with me, the yeah, sorry, looks like Behance, you guys are saying the audio's out of sync. Sorry about that, but if it's in sync on YouTube, then it sounds like a Behance problem. All right, but anyway, and I'll try and get to the demo so you don't see my lips moving out of sync as much. But anyway, so just like the iPhone is the camera I always have with me, this is the tripod I always have with me. So I can basically set this down and go ahead and shoot. All right, so flip it back around. Now it's back to the size of a credit card, slips right in my wallet. I always have it on me, so therefore I can always steady a shot. And again, it's small, it's got to sit on something. So if you are in the middle of nowhere, the only place you can sit on is on the ground, then that's what you're going to get. But if you can find a rock, a car, or whatever to sit it on top of, then you're going to get that stabilized shot. What is the camera icon? What is the camera icon behind Terry? There's a Nikon Z6 II behind me. There's a lens. And then there's a there's a iPhone and a MacBook Pro. Okay, but anyway, back to where we were. So let's get to the next tip. So use a tripod, steady your camera. Now, if you're saying, okay, if I'm going to use that tripod to get into the shot, how do I use my camera to how to use my phone to take a shot where I'm not there to press the button? In other words, I'm not there to because I'm stepped away from it. How can I press the button to activate the shutter? So a couple different techniques. Number one, you have the technique right on your phone itself. Here, let me grab the camera. Let me switch over so you guys can see it. All right, so you should be able to see, my, my desktop. Now let's switch over to the camera. All right, there's the camera. I'm holding it here. And like you've got the shutter button right there at the bottom to press it, but if it's sitting in a tripod, how are you going to press the shutter? So at the very top in the latest iOS, there's a little triangle that you can, here, I'm going to move the mic because I know this mic is very directional. If you press the little arrow up, that will pull down a menu at the very bottom. So now you see those icons at the bottom that say flash on, live view, 4:3 aspect ratio. And then the icon second from the right is your timer. So right now the timer's off. I can set it for 3 seconds or 10 seconds, whatever it takes for me to get away from the camera and get back into position. So if I set it for 3 seconds and then press the shutter and go run and get back in position, 3 seconds later, it will go ahead and take the shot, and it just did. Okay, so if I, of course, need more time, then I would go back to the shutter or timer, go back to 10 seconds, and now when I press it, I have 10 seconds to get in position, and 10 seconds later, it will take the shot. So that's not new. That's been in the iPhone for years and years and years. You've had the ability to set a timer. They just moved where it is. So right now it's at the top, in that top arrow pointing up or down. When you point it up, tap on it, point it up, then all that goes away. Now that's great if you are able to set the timer and you can get somewhere in 10 seconds. But the problem with that technique is that you are now going to constantly be, I'm going to just set this down. You're going to constantly be pressing the shutter, running back, getting in position, counting the 10 in your mind, okay, it took it. Now I need to go see what it looks like, and you're going to run back and see what it looks like. And then you're going to have to keep doing it up and back and forth. So the next thing that you might want to consider, and this is a specific feature. So now we're talking about all smartphones have a timer, but this specific feature is for iPhone users if you have an Apple Watch. So again, this is not it's not an Android thing, it's an Apple Watch thing, and Android watches may have this feature too. But built into the Apple Watch is an app called, I forget what it's called, I think it's called Camera. It is called Camera Remote. So here, I'll show you what it looks like. If I go to Camera Remote, there it is. So I just went into Camera, serious talk. I just went into Camera Remote, and now I've got the same thing. I've got the ability right on my wrist to press the 3-second shutter, and it will go ahead and take it in 3 seconds. The difference is I don't have to now run back to the phone and do it again. I can just tap it again. I can press the 3 seconds, and it will take another shot. And you can set it for a different number. I believe you can set it up to 10. And you'll get a little haptic, like a little vibration on your wrist to let you know that it's about to take it, like it's just going to take the shot, so you can get in position and get smile. And the other thing that's cool about that is that it also does it, I believe it will do it in video mode as well. So let me go to the settings for it. You can set it for, here we go. You can set it for the front or the rear camera. You can turn the flash on or off. I got to turn Siri off. Siri's driving me crazy right now. You can set it for on and off. You'll get a preview on the watch from the screen. So the watch is now showing me what I'm going to be taking a picture of, which is also nice. You get to compose it and see it right there. So again, if you are an Apple Watch wearer, you've got a remote built in to your watch. It's on your wrist at all times. And the nice thing about it is it uses the watch screen as the preview window to show you, hey, are you guys in focus? Are you guys, no, well, not so much in focus, but are you guys all in the frame? Is it going to be right? Then you just go ahead and tap it, put your hand back down, and then count to 3, and it will take the shot. That's a whole lot easier than running back and forth to wherever the camera is. But again, if you don't have an Apple Watch, it's not an iPhone, you still have the timer. You can do that. Same technique, just using the timer built into your phone. And again, all phones have had smartphones have had timers for years. So that is definitely not a new feature. All right, moving on. Next up. This is one that I see all the time, and it's more of a now we're going to get into some composition techniques. So when people take pictures of whatever, they're taking pictures of objects, they're taking pictures of people, they tend to do this, and I talked about this before. I talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago. You put the subject in the center of the frame. And that's just common. That's just something that, people have just done for years because they think that's where people are supposed to be. They're supposed to be in the center. But you're usually going to get a better shot, from an appeasing, eye-catching standpoint if your subject is not in the center. So for example, I could have easily placed her in the center of the frame, but you want the eye to be led into whatever the subject is. So usually you will either maybe have leading lines to the subject if it's a landscape, or if it's a person, you do that composition to where they're to one side or the other, just not dead center. And there are some examples where, of course, all rules are made to be broken. There are certain examples where dead center works great. But in most cases, you don't want to be dead center in the frame if you can avoid it. Now, you'll notice that when I bring up the camera, switch back to it, that's got this little grid on the screen. See those little white lines? Well, that's the rule of thirds. If I'm trying to just get it so you can see all the corners. So when you see an intersection like that, it won't let me turn it, but when you see an intersection, that intersection is designed to where you would put something, the grid is designed to where you would use the intersection to put something of interest. So like if I'm focused on this little lens, then I would want to put the lens on one of those intersections for the rule of thirds. And so that's why that grid is there when you go to take a picture. It's there to help you do composition. All right, next up, is not putting your subject in the center. Now, I mentioned angles last masterclass 2 weeks ago. And I mentioned that, shooting down on a subject or an object usually makes it look smaller, short, so forth and so on. Shooting straight on is better. Shooting down low is even better, and also zooming in. And when I talked about the telephoto lens, this confused a lot of people. I got a lot of feedback, like, what telephoto lens are you talking about? Well, remember I showed the back of the phone, it had 3 cameras in my case, or 2, or 1. If your camera has 2 or more cameras, if your phone has 2 or more cameras on it, then you'll notice at the very bottom, in my case, since I have 3, there's a 0.5, a 1x, and a 2.5. And right now it's on 1x because that's what it always defaults to. That's the wide angle lens. The 0.5 is the ultra wide angle. So if I were to switch to the ultra wide angle, look at how much more I get to see. That's the ultra wide angle. And then of course, the one on the right is the telephoto. So I mentioned 2 weeks ago that if you're photographing people, I showed some drastic examples. If you're photographing people, you want to be, if your camera has telephoto, you want to be on the telephoto lens because it's going to be less distortion for the face. Now, I also mentioned getting low when you can. And I mentioned that, like shooting from down low up on the object will make it look bigger. Shooting above the object and down will make it look smaller. Shooting straight on is fine, but again, it's straight on. And here's the tip. This is what I'm leading up to, is to get to the tip of the day for this one, is we talked about getting down low like that and taking your shot. And here, let me show you the examples. All right, so let's take this one. And now let's take this one. And now let's get low. The problem with getting low is that you may not be able to get low enough depending on where you are, where you position with the object. So remember we talked about the 3 lenses or 3 cameras? Well, you can turn your phone completely upside down. If I turn my phone completely upside down, then I can get really low. I can get really low on the object because now the camera's literally at the bottom of the phone. So it's at the bottom of the frame. So now I can take that super low angle shot with my phone upside down and get what I want, because all I've done is just turn it upside down to where the cameras are at the very bottom of the frame. And so if I now go to look at that even though I took it upside down, the phone was smart enough to know, oh, you still probably want this right side up. And it flipped it up for me. So that's that one, that one, that one. And again, that's trying to get low, but I wasn't low enough on the table. And that's shooting above it. And it makes a huge difference shooting down low versus shooting above. And now you've got the extra tip of just turning the phone upside down so that when you shoot down low, it's going to basically be able to take the, you're going to be out here taking upside down pictures. It's going to basically put the cameras at the very, very, very bottom of the device, as opposed to them putting still at the top. Because, this device is 5-6 inches tall. So now I've gained another 5 or 6 inches by putting the camera at the bottom. Okay, next up, let's talk about, no, I don't want to delete that one just yet. Let's talk about, we did that. Here's an important tip, and this is one that I fail at all the time personally when I'm taking selfies with people or taking selfies. Remind people where to look. And I'll give you a perfect example. I did not do this on purpose. It was just me doing it wrong. Notice she's looking directly at the camera. I'm looking off to the side because I'm probably looking at the screen to make sure we're, composed and so forth and so on. So just remind your subject where the camera is that they're supposed to be looking at, because otherwise the eye contact will always be off. So I'm off, looking off to the side. She's looking exactly in the right spot. And that's just going to make for a bad shot. So just remind people where to look. And we're used to looking at the screen because that's what we see. We see ourselves on the screen. But usually the cameras are off to the side or the top, depending on how you have it positioned. And just remember that, you're supposed to be looking at the camera, not the screen. All right, next. Oh, we can use that same example. Let's go back to it. Now, this was just a quick selfie, but if it mattered, like if this was something I was really, hang on one second. There we go. All right. If I was trying to really get this shot right, before you snap it, look around you. So look at what's behind me. There are looks like two other people behind me above her head. So the first thing you should do is, before you even raise the camera up to take the picture, the smartphone up, look at your background. Like, look to see what's behind you and what's going to be distracting. So I gave that example before. 2 weeks ago, I told the story. I hope it was a funny story about my high school reunion shot, which is in here somewhere. Or it was in here somewhere. Anyway, where there was a group of, here it is. A group of people, and I was taking a shot. This was not an iPhone shot, it's a professional shot, but this is a plant behind one of my classmates' heads. And I didn't see it until I got home, and I was laughing for days. But just keep in mind what's behind you when you're taking your shot. And now, because we're talking about what's behind you, let's talk about backgrounds in general. Now, the backgrounds I'm using for just these tabletop shots are from replica surfaces, and I put that in the description for the video. So replica surfaces makes these cool, like, I don't know, 2 foot by 2 foot panels that they have little legs on them, so they basically can stand straight up. And you just set them on the table and take pictures. They make them in all different designs, and you basically have two, because one's on the bottom and one's on the top. And that way, when you flip it around, then you get the other sides of whatever you chose. But anyway, whatever your background is, and now we're going to talk about photographing people. So we're going to use Ken again. I have Ken here ready to go. And I'm going to put Ken back on the surface. I'm going to show you the first mistake that people always make. So the first mistake that people make, let's go back to the phone. Hang on one second. The first mistake that people make, and this is not you as a photographer, this is just people in general. When you tell them to go stand in front of a background, for whatever reason, human nature is we go stand all the way against the background. Like, we stand exactly like where, as close to the background as we can get. Like, we are almost touching it with our back. And so when you do that, and I actually took the photos already. Let's just take a look at them. When you do that, that is your greatest opportunity for unwanted shadows. So here's Ken standing exactly like just inches away or millimeters away from the background. And that's going to give you the worst possible shadow, unless you want the shadow. Like, if you want that shadow, great. But if you say the shadow's hard edge, and we're going to get into that, but if you say the shadow's hard edge and behind the subject, and I don't want that, then don't have your subject stand directly against the background. Then the next question is, how far away from the background should they be, Terry? They should be, on average, and you can again vary this rule, but at least 6 feet away from the background. So if you get your subject I didn't change the light at all. All I did was move Ken forward not 6 feet, but his equivalent, if we talk about his size, of about 6 feet in front of that background, maybe 4 feet. And the shadow goes away because now the shadow's still there, but it's on the ground. It's outside the frame. It's somewhere else. It's not against the background. And you can even see the shadow on his feet. You can see it going off to the side, and that's okay. that it's on the ground because we don't really care if it's down there. So just have your subject move further away from the background. Next, now we're going to get into a couple quick posing tips. So you notice that we got rid of the shadow. Yeah, social distance from your background. We got rid of the shadow. The background's not distracting. It's just a pattern from replica surfaces. But Ken is just standing there. We got him from head to toe just about. Cut off a little bit of the head, but that's okay. And Ken's facing straight on. So like he's facing the camera straight on the way we just always assume we're supposed to stand, like a mugshot. Stand straight on, look at the camera, so forth and so on. And this is for people, especially people that are concerned that they're going to look bigger or wider or more overweight or whatever it is. This is your worst possible stance. They say that the only people that should face the camera straight on like this are professional football players in full uniform because they want to look bigger. They want to look wider. They want to look tough. So if you want to look wider and tough, stand straight on to the camera. You will look wider and, I don't know about tough, but you'll look wider for sure. Because just human nature, you're seeing your body from one side all the way to the other. Now, if you are going to stand like this, and I didn't have a choice because Ken's arms don't bend at the elbow, but you'll notice that there is space between his arms and his body. And that even if you're going to stand, no matter how you're going to stand, you want to create that negative space, whether it's putting your hand on your hip or putting your hand down to your side or whatever, but just not like this, not to where your arms are like down by your body at attention. You want to give that negative space because again, that takes away from that whole width of your whole body. All right. But since we're not supposed to stand straight onto the camera anyway, how should we stand? That goes to this one. Oh, I didn't do that one yet. Okay. So let me do it live. I'm pull Ken out and I'm going to turn his body to the side. Okay, let's do it live. And let's go ahead and take that shot. Okay, there's Ken. I'm on my telephoto lens. I'm going to back up so where I can see Ken. And I've got him turned to the side. Got a profile shot. Now let's go ahead and take that one. Okay, but we're almost there. Like we've got the body in the right position, but now what do we need to do? There's one more thing, and I did take the shot for that one. I just didn't take the one for turning to the side. We still want his face towards us. So body turn, chin towards the camera. And that's going to give you a better portrait all the time. So the best way to do that is to get the head turned towards the camera, chin facing the camera at all times, body to one side or the other. And they're going to ask you, which way should I turn? Okay, if they're asking you, that means they probably don't have a preference, because a lot of people have a preference to what side they think they look better on. So if they're not asking, then you want the body towards the light. Like I wouldn't want him turned away from the light. I wouldn't want his chest in darkness because I don't want his back lit, unless that's the effect I'm trying to get. But in most cases, you would want the subject turning towards the light, chin towards the face. Now, or chin towards the camera. Now, we talked about this last week. So I'm turning his head, so he's basically going to look at you like that. But the other thing we talked about was that when your light's directional, it's coming in from one side, not straight on, then you're probably going to want something to bounce that light back onto the subject. So we talked about little reflectors, and I mentioned, so for example, even if we look at the light that's coming above my head right now, if I were to put this under my chin, I'm going to get more light on my face because it's bouncing that light coming down onto me. And just always remember, no matter what, light goes in one direction. It goes in one direction, hits something, and then whatever it does hits, it either lights or bounces. So we're going to bounce it. So same thing. Let's get out of this for a second. Let's go back to the camera. And I mentioned this last week. If you want Ken to be lit on the side, then add some light on the side. Now, most people are not going to be traveling with a bunch of lights with their phone, but you can certainly travel with a reflector that fits. They make them small enough to even fit in your pocket. So this, by the way, you might be saying, how's that going to fit in my pocket? Look at this. This is a small reflector. They fold down to like this. So this would go in a little bag that it comes with, and this literally can fit in your back pocket. So, sorry, I wasn't holding on to it. So usually they have one side is one color, one side's another color. So white and silver, or white and gold, or gold and silver. And I gave you guys a kit for that, or I gave you guys a link for that in the kit. All right, so what's the statue with the giant fist? So for the person that's asking that is Joe Louis. So that is the Joe Louis boxing statue in downtown Detroit, right on Jefferson Avenue. And I talked about this 2 weeks ago, shooting down, up close, tight, shooting down low at an angle, up at it. So it just makes it look more like a fist. All right. So next tip. Okay, so we talked about bouncing the light. We talked about using a reflector. We talked about position. Yep, it could be white and a gray card. As a matter of fact, I almost grabbed that one by mistake. And I have a hat that folds up like that. Okay, so yeah, most of the reflectors fold down to be smaller. All right, next up, let's get into, we did that one. We did that one. We did eliminating shadows. We did turn to the side. Taking pictures of things that are moving. So when you take a picture of something that's moving, chances are going click and then looking, by the time you look and it's not right, it's too late. So meaning, oh shoot, now I missed it. It ran by and I only took one shot and I didn't get the right one. It wasn't in focus. So iPhones, and I'm sure Android phones, have had for years a burst mode. And on the iPhone, they changed it. It used to be you would press and hold the button down, hold the shutter down, and it would just go, it would take, like, as long as you hold it down, several shots. And then it would, using their artificial intelligence, their AI, it would pick what it thinks is the best one out of the 20, 50, 80 frames you took. But if you didn't agree, if you didn't think that was the best one, you can still go back and look through all the photos that it took, and you can pick the best one for that burst shoot. Now, like I said, it used to be you'd hold down the shutter. Now when you hold down the shutter in the latest iOS, it switches to record instead of taking a photo or taking a burst. So I was like, I know they didn't take the burst away. That's been there for years. So how do you get to burst? Let me show you. All right, go back to the phone. There we go. You get to burst, and I guess I remember which way. Yep. You press and hold the shutter and slide to the left. Oh, press and slide to the left. And as you're holding it to the left, see it counting up? Those are all the shots it's taking. It's taking 60 shots, 70 shots. I let go, and now it's taking 70 whatever shots that I just took. And so I would have to go into it and hit select. And that's where it's going, letting me see all the ones I took. And so hopefully I got one of those 70 in that short amount of time that was in focus. So something's going to run by, something's going to be quick, something's going to be a lot of motion. Just slide the shutter to the left. You're taking a burst, you're framing it as it goes by, and hopefully out of those 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 shots, you got the one you wanted. Now, if sliding the shutter to the left gives you burst, what does sliding the shutter to the right give you? It gives you recording. So like if you were on photo and you wanted to quickly shoot a video without having to swipe and stop and do all that to get the video, then you would just literally swipe the shutter to the right versus holding it to the left to do a burst. So that is burst mode for when you're shooting things, animals, people, kids, whatever it is, that are running by really quickly. All right, next up. Let's do this one. Let's do this one. We did that one. Let's do this one. Yep, we did that one. Now, I mentioned there's one more I forgot to mention when we were talking about using the timer and using the Apple Watch. There's one more opportunity you have, actually a couple opportunities. If you don't have an Apple Watch and you're not interested in buying one, or you use an Android, you're not going to have an Apple Watch, you can get a Bluetooth shutter. So literally a little coin-sized, less than this size, small remote that works with via Bluetooth, and it would just, you press it or hold it or whatever to take your shots. So there are Bluetooth remotes. I put one in the gear guide. And lastly, iPhone users, remember when you got those earbuds that came with your phone, like the wired ones? I'm not talking about the wireless, not talking about AirPods. I'm talking about earpods, the wired ones with the white wire. Well, on that earpod, there's a little set of buttons, like a little thing off to the side to do your volume up, volume down, press in the middle to pause. Well, guess what? If you've got those plugged into your phone, pressing that center pause button, it actually takes a photo. Actually, no, I take that back. It's the up volume, takes a photo. So if you press the up volume, that will shoot an image or fire the shutter for those of you that have the wired earphones or earpods for your iPhone, whether they're the ones that plug into the old headphone jack or the ones that plug into the lightning port. The wired ones serve as a remote shutter. So you can't get that far away because the cord's not that long, but at least you don't have to tap and risk the chance of shaking your camera by pressing the button. Yeah, and the volume up and down works on any device from the camera, but at that point, and that is a good tip. If you don't want to like press the button in the center, if you don't want to press the actual shutter button, the volume up button is also a good way to fire the shutter. So for example, let me switch to the phone. So I'm not going to use my other hand. I'm just going to hit the volume up button. And why is that cool? Because you can hit the volume up button with one hand while you're holding the phone. So hitting the volume up, holding the phone takes the shot, and I don't have to use my finger to reach over and take it with my shutter. And that's also great for taking selfies. So when I'm holding it up and I'm trying to take a selfie down, I just hold the phone and just hit the right or hit the up volume button, which is where my thumb is anyway. So just keep that in mind, is that you also have that tip. Work on Bluetooth. I don't think it works on Bluetooth, Christine. You can try it. All right, so let's move on. And we did that. We did that. Okay, let's talk about the flash, light. Like I'm using a light here that's part of lighting my green screen background. So that light's already here. It's an LED light, works great. It's great. You're not traveling with lights usually, or maybe you are, but for most people, you're not traveling with lights. So should you use the flash on your phone? No. I should say blanket no. It's going to not be great. It's going to be okay. Like if it means getting the shot versus not getting the shot, then obviously use the flash. Meaning it's so dark you can't get the picture any other way, then yes, use the flash. And that's what I mean by it's not going to be great, but you should use it only in emergencies, like only when there's no other choice but to use the flash. Why? Because the flash on your phone is literally a little tiny circle that emanates a bright flash of light. It's a tiny, tiny circle. And therefore, and also it's positioned right above or right below or right to the side of the actual camera. And so it's the worst position, and it's a small, unflattering light. Why is it unflattering? Because in just the rule of lighting, the smaller the light source and the further away from the subject, the worse it's going to look. The opposite is true. The bigger the light source, the closer to the subject, the softer and more beautiful it's going to look. And I did this example, I think I showed this example in my masterclass when we did these portraits. Okay, here we go. So this was a shot just with available window light. It's okay. It's light coming in from a window off to the side. This is a shot using the flash on the camera. It's not an iPhone flash, this was a speed light right on the camera. Hard, unattractive light. This was moving the light off the camera. Same light, just moving it off the camera, putting it on a stand. You don't have that choice with a built-in flash. And then we started adding diffusers and adding things to the light to make it better. So you can get a much more attractive portrait by getting the light off your camera or not using the light that's in your camera. Now, again, back to if you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. But if you have a choice, A, don't use the flash on the camera. B, if you're going to use a light source, get it away from the camera, like off to the side, pointing at your subject, you're back further away. Then what can I use? In other words, you're telling me I shouldn't use that little flash in my camera, then what should I use? Because it's an iPhone or a smartphone, you don't really have many choices to trigger flashes. So that means you need light that's continuous. Now, this is a company, I put this in the gear guide as well. This is a company called Lightroom, and they make a little LED light. Now you're saying, Terry, you shouldn't use little lights. You're right, but this is probably 10 times bigger than the flash on your back of your phone. So just by the fact that it's bigger, it's gonna be better. Now, this isn't a flash, this is on or off. So this is literally just lighting your subject. So you're gonna get, bright, beautiful light. Now, I can turn it up. It can get super bright, or it can go off. Now, let's say I make it super bright. Now, that's not great. That's harsh light in front of me. But if I were to get one of those little portable reflector kits that includes a diffuser, this is a big one, but you get a small diffuser, and that light is now diffused on your subject. So that's taking it away, that's diffusing it, so that you're shooting through material that softens and makes that light bigger. So this can obviously fit in a pocket. And by the way, it even comes with a diffuser. So let's try the diffuser that it comes with. And that diffuser that it comes with is still better than the bare bulb. That's the bare bulb. See how much worse that is? See how harsh and bad that is? Put the little, now I'm blinded. Put the little, literally can't see now. Put the little diffuser on it, and even that diffuser is 10 times better than the bare bulb. And that's why it comes with a diffuser. Or shoot through a diffuser. Now, what if you say, well, Terry, I don't want to, I didn't bring a diffuser with me. What can I use? If you're nearby any curtains, like sheer curtains, shower curtain, whatever, something that's sheer that you can literally hold up in front of the light. And this also goes for bright, harsh sunlight, which you shouldn't shoot in either. But if you have a way to diffuse it, you can turn a bad lighting situation into a much better lighting situation. So you can, if you want to carry lights around with you to take better dark nighttime shots, Lightroom is a great choice. If you find light that you're going to be nearby, but it's too bright, too harsh, you want to diffuse it, use a little portable diffuser. That's a big one. You can definitely grab a smaller one, and you can just make your lighting so much better. And again, if you have no choice, then yes, use the flash on the camera. But even using that flash on your camera, you could probably do better by diffusing it as well. All right, so that's using the flash if you have to. Now, the other choice you have. Remember this? Remember the reflector? Well, the reflector usually has a white side. There's a gold or silver and usually a white side. White is going to be softer. It's just going to be softer light. The other choice you have is, remember we used that LED light to light Ken, and then we came to the other side to reflect the light. If you have harsh light, the other thing you can do is just use the reflector to soften it. So I can point, let me get it brighter. I can point that light at the reflector, and that what it's reflecting back to me, let me get it out, there we go. What it's reflecting back to me is a brighter light. If I get it just right, we'll probably be able to see it better. I'm trying to get it so the light's not in the frame. There we go. But anyway, if you get the angle just right, you can, and I'll turn it off. That's off. That's on. That's super bright. You can use a reflector to soften the light as well. Last tip for lighting: if the light is harsh, bright, too bright on the subject, and you have the ability to turn it, like you have the ability to either turn the subject or turn the light. Another tip or technique is called feathering the light. Now, what feathering means is instead of pointing the light directly at the subject or having the subject stand directly in front of the light, turn it. So that the light's shooting over there, but they're still getting some of the spill, some of the side lighting. And usually that side lighting will be much softer, not as harsh, not as bad as putting the light directly on the subject. So just turn the light, feather it, turn the subject away from the light so that they're getting some of it, but not shooting directly into it or facing directly into it. Okay, that's my lighting tips and techniques. We got a few minutes left. So reflect it, diffuse it. Only use the camera, only use the flash if you have to. Now we're going to do a couple pro tips. So this is just in general. We talked about this a little bit last time. I mentioned it, and but I didn't go into the details. So if you have okay, two things. If you have an iPhone 12 Pro, whether it's the 12 Pro or 12 Pro Max, then you can shoot in Apple's Pro RAW. So that's why I have a RAW button at the top right corner. So if I were to turn that on, just tap it so it doesn't have a line through it. Now I'm shooting in RAW mode, and I will get a RAW photo onto my camera roll. And once I take it into editing software, I'll have more control, more ability, less things that were built in by the camera, by the phone. So I'll be able to just have more editing capabilities. Now, what if you don't have a 12 Pro or 12 Pro Max? So what if you don't have one of those? Then the next thing you can do is go into Lightroom. And if you download Lightroom on your phone, which is free to download, there's a camera app built into Lightroom. And when I tap the camera, it's going to bring up the Lightroom camera, and you notice it says DNG at the top, which is RAW. If I tap, I get a choice between DNG or JPEG. So if it were a shot I didn't care about, I'd probably shoot it in JPEG, but if it was a shot I didn't care about, I probably wouldn't come into Lightroom to shoot it because I'm coming into Lightroom because I have more features. So if I switch it to JPEG, then I'm going to get a smaller file, but I'm going to get one that's compressed and got everything baked into it. I'm not going to have as much control, but I can shoot in DNG. Now, then, if Lightroom lets me shoot in DNG, what kind of phone do I need for that? This works all the way back to at least the iPhone 7 Plus, in that realm, that age. So a few years ago, we were able to shoot in RAW using the Lightroom camera. So same thing on Android. You don't have to have the latest and greatest Android phone to be able to shoot in RAW. And chances are, if you have a phone built in the last 5 years, it can shoot in RAW, is what I'm trying to say. So you can shoot in RAW with the Lightroom camera. Now, the other benefits that the Lightroom camera gives you, quickly before I run out of time, is that you have more control. So if I go to professional mode, from auto to professional, I get to control many of the same things I would control. Oh, someone said on the 6S too. So we went all the way back to the 6S. I think that is when it started. Yes, the 6S is when you can shoot RAW. If I go into my professional mode, then I get control over exposure compensation, shutter speed, ISO, white balance. I get to control all the same kinds of things I would control with my professional camera. So if I needed to change the shutter speed because I want to do a slow shutter speed or I want to do a faster shutter speed, I can control that shutter speed to whatever I want it to be. There we go. Or I put it back on auto. Same thing with ISO. If I want to crank up the ISO to maybe not have to use a flash, I want to be able to shoot in a darker situation. Now I could bump up that ISO. It's going to add more grain, but at least I wouldn't have to use the flash. So you have that ability as well. So you have lot more controls over your camera using just the Lightroom app to shoot with. And again, that will give you more advice, or I'm reading a comment, that will give you more control over an older iPhone that doesn't necessarily shoot in RAW natively. Well, natively in the manufacturer's app. You can, of course, always shoot natively in RAW in Lightroom all the way back to the iPhone 6S. So long ago. All right, I'm out of time. So hopefully you got something out of that. Hopefully you will now go off and take better iPhone shots. And with that said, cheers everyone. Thanks for watching. And no, you can't control the aperture. And thanks everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye everybody. Cheers.